Scorpio rising, I'm sure you've heard a lot of hype and spin around the Barbo basket. This is what it looks like in your whole sign chart. I want to break down all the components in this video. I'm Superboy, you're awesome. Let's talk about it. Primarily, this might not actually feel like an external event that happens to you, more so an internal revolution, very introspective. Something about putting together the hours of your day and what does your lifestyle really look like? How do you spend your time? An underlying restlessness with your routine. Does your work, the way you take care of yourself, your daily task, does that really support where you really want to be? And ultimately, an awareness that something deeper within you is changing and asking to bloom. There is this supercharged kind of spine going through the center of your chart from the Jupiter-Pluto. And again, that is really introverted, internal, and reflective. And it's around the idea of how visible you really want to be. If financial circumstances are playing a role in this, is it time that you pivot from your career or life direction? Rebuilding your family, potentially, and finding more purpose in your daily life. Has there been some kind of spontaneous pivot when it comes to your financial circumstances? Have things got easier? Have things got harder? Have you adjusted to the new situation? Old fears, past resentments, and bitterness potentially is causing some very vulnerable emotions in this time. When it comes to those more intimate relationships, a real desire for close intimacy and raw honesty. You could be feeling like your partner has been questioning you, or you've become ruthlessly curious about the personal interests of your partner. Now, this doesn't have to be a romantic partner, romantic, business, platonic, or otherwise. It could also be the logistics around contracts and how they play out in real time. And with Saturn in the 6th house of health, you could really be starting to feel the wear and tear of burnout. This could manifest as fatigue or frustration with work, and with Jupiter moving into that 10th house of Leo, a certain sense of overwhelm. But as you will discover, this isn't all bad, and you're actually being asked these questions for a reason. Let's take a step back. This is made up of generational planets and a social planet, meaning that Jupiter's involved. Now, this basically means that you may not even receive an event. This may not directly impact you. More so, you become the observer of it in the cultural zeitgeist or society at large. So it's important to understand that there may not be some kind of isolated event that takes place. It's more nested in the context of the cycles that we're in. Now, back in 2000, generationally speaking, we saw a new generation birthed into the earth, let's say. And they're the first population of people that really don't know what it's like to not have access to the internet. Think about that. Now they're 20-something and they're going to gather momentum and have more and more influence around how they think society should be governed, who they vote for, who they don't vote for, who they give their attention to, who they don't give their attention to. And in particular, this aspect pattern has a lot to do with technology, so the way they integrate technology into their daily life. And so therefore, on a more individual level, how have you integrated technology into your daily life? The next flagship moment I can see in this ongoing cycle is around the financial crisis back in 2007, 2008, when we saw the rise of digital currency, and we also saw the rise of basically the veil being pulled away and us seeing that the government will ultimately bail out the banks before it helps the civilians. In other words, we saw the very visible public unsheathing of corruption and who really holds the power in our society. Or at least the Western world, to say the least. Where I really want to start the clock is around 2020. Who were you then and who are you now? And what have you been through in this last 6 years? We're in a synodic cycle, and it started with the grand conjunction between, say, Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto, kinda. And so we're 6 years deep into this. And so now you probably have a new way of approaching life, new belief systems, new people in your life that you've actually allowed to get to know you in a more intimate way. Now, as this plays out, we have another 6 years. So again, this is probably not going to be an isolated event for this pretty rare aspect pattern. It's just going to be an unfolding of an existing cycle. And so again, it might not impact you directly. It could impact your siblings. It could impact your workplace or your industry. And it's something you actually observe or feel internally. Collectively, if you ask me, this aspect pattern is basically about techno-feudalism and the distribution of resources and information. How information is accessed between the population, let's say, and how much access to resources we have in terms of what we're allowed to see, what we're allowed to say, and what we're allowed to spend our money on. In the next 6 years, potentially from July, we're going to see an acceleration of things like digital ID and the need for digital currency from the powers to be. Now, the powers to be are losing their footing at this point, and society is very much changing. And so they're going to get a lot louder over the next 6 years and become potentially a lot more authoritarian. Whilst at the same time, there will be a new conglomerate or population of people from the grassroots up that totally reject technology and that totally reject this more authoritarian rulership over what we can see, who we can be, what we can buy, and what we can say. So whilst it is happening in a collective way, we can have a more surgical look at what it means for a Scorpio rising's chart. Let's break it down. Jupiter's moved into your 10th house. It usually means a little bit of overwhelm or exploration or discovery or exposure to your more visible self. Having opportunities that you could potentially step into or identify with moving forward. What are you building? And ultimately, what do you want to be recognized for? What is the legacy you feel like leaving behind? Typically, Jupiter in the 10th house is pretty successful, but it's not about what you receive in terms of success. It's about what can you learn about yourself? What is the meaning of this period? Jupiter is much more about long-term growth than short-term comfort in this situation for you. Jupiter is building towards an exact opposition with Pluto. And Pluto's down in your 4th house of, who you belong to, who you are when no one's watching. And so, although you might be trying to strive for greatness, you might be really ambitious and trying to grow your career, do you have that emotional foundation? Do you have that support at home? Have you found that mystical work-life balance? And more than anything, do you have security at home? Is there a place where you can actually relax and unpack and feel emotionally and materially comfortable when you're in those 4 walls? Or is there some kind of power struggle? Are you bringing the roles and responsibilities, cortisol and stress back from work to your home every day? And is that making things more complicated or uncomfortable for everyone that you live with? Or vice versa? Is there someone in your home that is bringing all their baggage from work back into that home or living situation? With Pluto moving through this 4th house, there usually is an unsettling, somewhat uncomfortable reconstruction, sometimes even crisis when it comes to the home or living situation. And so you could be dealing with that at home, and then when you go to work, there's so much overwhelm. Maybe you're overcommitted and you're starting to feel the burnout of both of these very important areas of your life. Sometimes Pluto and 4th house transits can actually bring loss. So you could be quietly grieving, or someone in the home is quietly grieving. So there is this kind of process of the home just feeling not comfortable or secure in this time because of such heavy emotions. As I said, it's not all bad, and there are ways to distribute this more heavy energetic signature by moving to the Uranus and the Neptune in other areas of your chart. Neptune's forming a fire sextile with Jupiter, and so this really wants you to think outside the box, really question, discover, explore, what your life means and what the legacy you want to leave behind actually might be, and striving for that, having faith and trust in yourself, and having some kind of potentially spiritual practice or spiritual framework, some kind of belief system that actually houses you in a more secure way, meaning that your beliefs inform your actions. They spearhead your actions, and those actions are what you basically live out in concrete reality. Have you been following a false idol? Have you had a reality check about what your belief system really is? Did someone say that they had all the answers, and in the end, it's actually up to you to step into your own spiritual sovereignty and really own your own beliefs and own your own philosophy of the world? More than anything, this Neptune-Jupiter really wants you to find meaning in every day and working towards the perfect day. Idealizing, what does that perfect day look like? It doesn't necessarily mean taking a holiday or taking a rest. It means, how do I have enough variety in my day that, I've satisfied all my needs? Aligning your daily routines with your personal values so you can kind of copy and paste that up to something worth building, something worth elaborating on or exploring or developing when it comes to that legacy, life path forward, life direction or career. Some of you might be rather burnt out. Maybe you've suffered a workplace injury, or you're still working through some kind of sickness. You may have even had trouble finding a diagnosis. And this lack of diagnosis or lack of attention to your body and your health and your lifestyle could literally be the thing that's holding you back. Now, the Uranus sextiling the Jupiter and trining the Pluto is very much about being ruthlessly curious about your limiting beliefs and basically thinking back to your early childhood. Did you ever see anyone, your role models in particular, mentors, advisors, father, mother, role models, did you see them actually enjoy their life? Did you see them resolve their conflict? Were they ambitious? Were they not ambitious? And how did that rub off on you? What kind of, work ethic or emotional patterning did you inherit from them? And is that limiting you in some way? Is that something that you need to kind of trudge up and understand a bit better, unpack, so you can actually decide to yourself, no, I'm going to be the circuit breaker in this family or in my situation. Breaking those inherited patterns, having epiphany moments, having breakthroughs, or liberating yourself in some way. And that might actually help you pivot financially as well. It really is an invitation to spontaneously sometimes ask the right questions and trust your instincts. Now, the worst thing you could do is doing it for someone else. This one's about you, not looking for external validation, actually understanding what really fills your cup and trying to fill your cup for you, not looking for the credit points or the status points or whatever the case may be, not looking for fame, not looking for popularity. This one's all about you. Again, I need to reiterate, it could be something you observe in other family members or people that you work with. This might not be impacting you individually. And for that reason, have a little bit of objectivity about this reading. It's a very broad overview. As a thank you for watching this entire video though, please feel free to send me a DM. I'll send you a coupon code for 30 Australian dollars off my natal and birth chart readings. Only love, positive vibes always. Hope that helps. Goodbye.